Today we're talking about losing your faith. Well, not you specifically, but people losing their faith in general. Okay, let's get to it. Hey Internet, my name is Jeff and I'm a pastor, and today we are talking about losing your faith. First of all, I'm shooting at home today, so a little bit of a different setup, but also you might hear some background noise, and one of my cats is like right there, so who knows what's going to happen with that. My 2-year-old's about to wake up from his nap. Anyway, anything can happen. Be on the edge of your seat. So, today we're talking about losing your faith, which is something that I hear a lot about, especially this time of year, as people are getting ready to go to college. It's like, oh, are the kids going to lose their faith when they go to college? Or it seems like a lot of people, a lot of high-profile Christians, which is a weird thing to say. Christian pop stars or former Christian pastors or evangelical leaders are coming out saying that they have lost their faith. Seems like there's a lot of talk about losing your faith. And I mean, maybe you're watching this and you're the kind of person who's just thinking to yourself, you know what? There's a lot that's changing in my life, and I kind of feel like I'm losing my faith because I don't believe the same things that I used to believe. Well, today we're going to talk about that. Now, I want to start off this conversation by saying we talk about faith in terms of something that you either have or you don't have. You get it, and then you lose it, or you keep it. And I think that we need some more nuanced language. And here's what I mean. We talk about faith like it's your appendix. Some of you have had your appendix out. You don't have your appendix. I have not had my appendix out. I have my appendix. You either have it or you don't. But what if faith is less like your appendix and more like a muscle? What if your faith is something that, sometimes it's a little weak, or sometimes it's strong, or sometimes you're in a certain point in your life where you thought you had a really strong faith, but then something happens and you strain your faith, and it takes a while for that muscle to come back. See, I'm fond of this metaphor because it's just a little bit more true to life, because faith isn't something that you either have or you don't have. It's something that fluctuates over time. Sometimes you seem to have a lot of it. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you believe some parts of what you formerly believed, and sometimes you don't believe other parts of it. It's not an all or nothing thing by any stretch of the imagination. So that's one thing that I want to say about losing your faith, is that maybe you haven't lost it, maybe it's just weak or strained. Or if you're really worried about somebody who seems to have lost their faith or lost the way because they're not towing the party line anymore, maybe they haven't lost their faith. Maybe they're just exercising their muscle in a new way that you haven't seen before. Now, I also want to make the suggestion that maybe losing your faith is kind of a good thing sometimes. Because let's face it, there are some things about your faith or your religion or your practice. There are some things that maybe they worked for a little while, but they just don't work anymore, so now it's changing. The way that somebody put this to me one time is that, like, when you're a child, for example, you have a Crayola faith. You have a faith that you can color. There's this one comedian named Pete Holmes. He talks about how his early image of God was the Burger King king. That's your Crayola faith. It's something that's very simple and very basic. But here's the thing about the Crayola faith. The Crayola faith works great when you're a child. But then, over time, not so much. There are some things that you need to lose about your Crayola faith in order for it to work as you continue on into adulthood. So it's going to change. Does that mean that you lost your faith? No. It just means that your faith has changed, which is fine. It happens. I mean, at least if you're thinking about your faith at all, it's just something that's going to happen. Now, one last thing I want to say is that, since this is, after all, a channel where you find videos about the Bible, there's biblical there's biblical precedents. There's biblical precedents for this understanding of what faith is and how we exercise our faith or experience our faith. Take, for example, this guy named Peter. You find Peter throughout the New Testament. So early in the Gospels, he starts following Jesus. He used to be a fisherman, and then he started following Jesus. And over time, he seems to make a really good impression on Jesus, because at one point, Jesus turns to Peter and says, "You are the rock on whom I'm going to build my church." Peter is also somebody who walked on water with Jesus. But here's the other thing about Peter. Peter is also somebody who, as he was walking around on water with Jesus, looked around and then started sinking in the water. And Jesus says to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" See, apparently sometimes the rock, Peter, has little faith, or you might say weak faith. That doesn't mean that he has lost his faith, because again, faith isn't like an appendix. It's a little bit more like a muscle. Another thing about Peter is that he had that nickname, the Rock. Well, at one point, Jesus turns to him in the middle of a conversation and says, "Get behind me, Satan." He calls Peter Satan. So he's the rock, but he's also Satan. He walks on water, he sinks in water. Peter famously denied that he ever knew Jesus 3 times while Jesus was on trial, about to be executed. Sometimes he has a very strong faith. Sometimes he has a very weak faith. That doesn't mean that it's lost altogether. So see, as you go about your business and you hear about people losing their faith, or you start to wonder, am I losing my faith? Or is this person that I know that I really look up to losing their faith? Is my friend losing their faith? Maybe we just need to reframe the conversation a little bit. And instead of talking about people losing their faith, talk about how their faith is changing. They're exercising it differently. Maybe it's stronger, maybe it's weaker, maybe it needs a little bit of exercise, maybe it needs a little bit of rest, but it still continues to be there. Let's allow more nuanced language with regards to understanding our faith and whether we have it or not and how strong or weak it is. Let's have an understanding that honors the particular stage of life that we're in, not as faithless, but maybe as a stage of life where we need to let our faith rest for a little bit to regain some of its strength. All right, that's it, everybody. Click like and subscribe, and leave a comment below if you would like to leave a comment below. I don't know, I guess I should probably say something that you should comment below. Yeah, I can't think of anything. Anyway, leave a comment if you'd like to, but at least click like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Grace and peace.